Welcome to Live Life Better. This is Scott Eastwood. I want you to live the best version of your life. We're all human beings. We're all just trying to figure it out. Find something you love and chase it. Today we talk to Mark Devine, the author of Unbeatable Mind and The Way of the Seal. He also has a program called Seal Fit. It's called Seal Fit, right, Tim?
Sealfit.com, buddy.
Sealfit.com. That's it. Had a nice conversation with him. Talked a lot about mental toughness and, yeah, mental toughness. I think that really is what it sort of boils down to when it comes to staying healthy, because you got to have mental fortitude to push past the tough days, you know? Anyone could go to the gym one day or eat healthy one day, but you got to have consistency. So, anyways, mental toughness, check it out.
Scott, we need to talk.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
My pleasure.
You made the drive.
It's not bad. I actually had my my producer drove.
Oh, that's nice.
I could pretend to do some work.
That's
which
good.
means I slept and listened to my audiobook, but
I know.
I look real busy.
I'm actually really excited for self-driving cars for that reason.
Oh, for sure. Me too.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, I think so.
You know?
Not only a hell of a lot safer.
Oh, yeah.
A lot less stress, but also you can sit back and get some work done.
Yeah.
Or watch a movie.
Yes. I want to read.
My
mostly.
son's a big car guy, so he's not
as excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a little bit of a car guy. This guy's a bigger car guy than I am.
Yeah. What do you think about self-driving cars?
There's actually a human driving organization that's starting to come together.
Really?
Just for people like your
to
son and
protect
ourselves
the interests,
to enjoy
maybe
it. Yeah.
Unionize
Absolutely.
diesel, and,
but for trips
gas
between
guzzlers.
San Diego and Los Angeles, all about self-driving cars.
Yeah, I get that. For long haul, if it's work.
Or just
Why
a
not?
bullet train, right? I mean, that would have been nice.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we have the tracks. Why don't we? I don't know how hard it is to convert it.
We just go underground like Elon if you can
Boring
do
company,
that.
yeah.
The boring, right?
That would be cool. I would be into that. I'm all into that. Not, you know,
I wouldn't want to be
sitting.
under there when the next earthquake comes out, you know.
No.
That would be a shitty place to be.
No, but I don't know. I mean, really? I mean, what if they reinforce it? What if they put these giant steel tubes or something? You know, is that? I don't know.
They've probably done a lot of research on that. So
Yeah.
Smarter people than us.
I just remember that
That's
Stallone
true.
movie where he got stuck in the tunnel underneath the river. Remember that? And
Oh, Daylight.
Daylight, yeah.
Right?
How
It
do
was
you
called
remember that?
Daylight.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
Yes. I do remember that. Yeah, that was like a claustrophobic movie. That was good. 90s movie.
Yeah, 90s.
Yeah, good 90s
when
movie.
Stallone was putting out a bunch of stuff.
So I'm looking at your book here, Unbeatable Mind.
Right.
When did you write this?
I wrote the first edition. It's self-published, so I get to update it. You know, the first
Awesome.
edition I wrote for my community back in 2011.
Okay.
That's the third edition. It's amazing. You know, I keep getting great feedback.
Mhm.
I'm about ready to do another edition. I'll probably just stop calling them editions. You know,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it would be kind of silly to see like 10th edition.
Sure.
But that's a beautiful thing. Self-publishing is really an incredible thing. You know, you keep 70% of the royalties, so I, actually earn quite a bit of money from that book because it keeps selling. But you get to maintain all editorial control. I mean, every single word in there I wrote, the whole cover design.
Really?
You know, me staring down the wolf.
Yeah.
It goes off of or comes from kind of a metaphor we use for teaching people to maintain a positive mindset and like a courageous attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, you want to feed the courage wolf. And if you feed the courage wolf, then you starve fear. Right?
Is this this is the big motif in this book?
It's one of them, right?
Okay.
The general idea, like the big idea, the big aha is that you're capable of 20 times more than you think you are, but you have to take responsibility to unlock that. And to unlock that, you've got to develop the potential inside through mastering, certain elements of yourself, like master how your mind and your emotions and your intuition work and access the raw power of your spirit. And then you go act in the world forcefully, and perform at, 20 times peak. But in order to do that, you have to align with something, like you have, that you're really passionate about, that you're really good at, and that serves the world in a unique way, right? You can't, the whole thing falls apart if you go and like spend all this time mastering yourself, and then you just go out and make money, right?
It's true. That is true.
just build an organization because
You want to make money.
Because you want to make money. Yeah.
No.
So that's not cool. So that's whole philosophy. It's a training model that I put together after. Here's where it all came about, Scott. I have a passion. I'm a SEAL. I was a SEAL for 20 years, and half of it was active duty, the other half was reserve. And as a reserve, I became an entrepreneur. Reserve SEAL, for those who don't know, I mean, it's the best job in the freaking world, because, I could get a phone call, or even I could call and say, hey, guys, what do you got for me? And like, well, we could use you with SEAL Team 6 in Afghanistan. You want to go? Check. When do I leave? Mm-hmm. And I'm there for 4 months. And then when I come back, I take my uniform off and I go back into the office. I'm like, hey guys, what did I miss?
Okay.
It's amazing, right? It's basically staffing service for SEAL officers.
You did this for 10 years?
I did the Reserve SEAL for 10 years. There's very few of us. I think there's a couple hundred officers and, a few hundred enlisted SEALs on the reserve side. There's about 20, low 2000s on the active duty side. So at any rate, I digress. So as a Reserve SEAL, I went into business, and one of my businesses was to, I got hired by the government to set up a mentoring program for SEAL candidates, to train them, to prepare SEAL candidates for the most challenging training in the world. And I had that was one of my unique gifts, is to be able to train people in mental toughness and resiliency using, the principles in this book, which were different than what even the SEALs were teaching SEALs. Because I'm a lifetime martial artist, and I've been a yogi and a certified yoga teacher with about 1,000 hours of certification for maybe 15 years. So
Nice.
While I was on active duty, and I really learned that some of the techniques that come from those perennial traditions that are thousands of years old are really the essence for developing mental toughness, resiliency, awareness, and they were part of all great warrior traditions in the past, but have been kind of lost in the modern world. And I wanted to bring them back. And so part of that government contract, so the government contract for me only lasted a year. And I'll try to condense this story, because I had the contract stolen from me by $1 billion company called Blackwater. And instead of fighting that and like continuing down the government contracting route, I basically used my own principles to kind of like reflect and reorient my whole career to do something that was a little bit even more impactful. And that was to train the SEALs privately and also open up the training to civilians. So that was a launch of a business called SEALFit, which started in 2006. And SEALFit we still run today. It's the hardest civilian training in the world. Like, one of our events is 50 hours of nonstop physical, mental, emotional training with a team. Mm-hmm. It's an extraordinary experience. You should do it, by the way. I'm hereby inviting you to do it.
I would love to. I've actually done a few things similar to that. I don't know. It's exactly the similar, but I've done 72 hours of sort of sleep deprivation and the whole thing, because I played a SEAL in a movie.
Oh, did you? Oh.
Yeah, it was a comic book movie. It was called Suicide Squad.
Okay.
But I have two Navy SEAL friends who train me now in two different movies, and they put me through the paces.
Remember the TV show 6? Have you heard about that?
I didn't see it, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so all those actors, the guy who was kind of like the military, I guess, advisor, was a good friend of mine. So he wanted these actors to kind of have a legit experience. So he sent them through a week of our training. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't all like around the clock we were talking about. The first 3 days were, and then we went. You know, and it was extraordinary. They were talking about this for a couple of years on the show, how it really helped them forge, as a team, and to really just get a taste for what the real operators are doing out there. So anyways, long story short, I started this 30-day academy, which is like a true warrior monk academy. And these guys would come live with me on site in my Encinitas, compound, which was really modeled after Bud's. I had a big grinder, grinder was a place where we ground their character down and build them back up. Okay. And we had the beach, and, we did everything that you can imagine. And so I trained with them for 15 hours a day for 30 days straight, no breaks. Half a day on one Sunday they got to take
this
off.
This is for the candidates that are going to go into
That's right.
Buds.
But now it's private. So the government contract went away. I decided I want to train spec ops and predominantly SEALs, but I didn't limit it to SEALs. So my first class, I had 4 guys 2 SEAL candidates, 1 Green Beret, and 1 Green Beret's friend who had no idea what he was getting himself into.
He was just there along for the ride?
Yeah.
Like, I'm
he
getting
loved
shape.
it, though. And once he,
For 30 days?
Yeah, 30 days.
15 hours a day?
Right.
Wow.
So during
Good
this,
for him.
out of this experience for a couple of years I ran this, we now condensed it to 3 days. I can accomplish what I need in 3 days.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. But I developed the whole physical training model that became SEAL Fit. All the whole workout regimen, which is like really rugged, hybrid, austere fitness, and something called the Crucible model, which is like Hell Week. So the difference is SEAL training is 9 months long. Most people think of Hell Week, which is 1 week,
Sure.
and that's what you experience: nonstop, sleep deprivation, around the clock.
Yeah.
2 different training models that are overlaid on top of each other. The Hell Week is really to test your resolve, your spirit, your non-quittingness, your ability to be a good teammate, because the whole thing is organized so that you can't possibly survive this alone, right? No Rambos will make it.
Yeah.
And it's an extraordinary event, and most people don't make it. It's like my SEAL class, we had 185 dudes, all just, meat eaters who started. Hell Week was like week 7 for us. Now they moved it up. I think it's like week 4. So 185 guys. By the time we got through Hell Week, we had maybe 40 guys. And then those 40 guys, we trained hard for another, 7 or 8 months.
Yeah.
And then at graduation, there were 19 of us left.
Out of how many?
185.
185.
Yeah.
Well done in 19.
Yeah, thanks. And so then I wanted to kind of create a training academy that would give them as much momentum and knowledge and insight and, kind of a sense of having been there and done that before these guys went to their training.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked. It was powerful. So we have 90% success rate getting guys through SEAL training.
The people that come and take
People
your
come to our
program
training
first.
Right,
This is
right.
SEAL Fit, or this is private?
This is SEAL Fit.
This
But
is SEAL
SEAL Fit's
Fit.
my private company.
Got it.
Right.
But it also is it also, from what I looked on the website, it looked like it was like a boot camp, also sort of like a workout regime, right? You can
Right.
be a member too.
Right. We have a workout program
Yeah.
to get fit like a Navy SEAL, and this is what I was talking about, kind of the difference between BUDS and Hell Week.
Mhm.
And then we have events that will teach you all this stuff in live, or you can follow it online. And then we have these things called crucibles. So the 50-hour crucible is our Hell Week simulation. We call that Kokoro camp. And Kokoro means whole mind or heart mind.
Got it.
Yeah. And then the Unbeatable Mind training came out of that because it was relatively easy for me to build the physical mental training model, where we use hard functional fitness and sleep, all the SEAL type things. And I combined it with CrossFit and a lot of things that I'd learned, in the martial arts, and to create a really, high level hybrid athlete with a lot of durability. So that's what special operators need to be. They don't need to win anything.
Mhm.
They just need to stay in the fight and basically do a lot of different shit and in all sorts of extreme environments. And so that's what our training model really accomplishes. That was fairly easy. And I have a book out that describes that program called 8 Weeks to SEAL Fit. That was a New York Times bestseller because my community bought it right away because they were waiting for it, for years.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but the harder part for me, Scott, was like, okay, 15 hours is a long time to fill up, right? And I'm the head instructor, right? So I wanted to develop a curriculum, like a no-shit, bona fide curriculum for training mental toughness, resiliency, the character of, a SEAL. Like what does it take to develop trust and trustworthiness? What does it take to, to be able to communicate with brutal honesty, especially in a world where that type of communication is, dangerous even.
Yeah.
And
Heard a great quote the other day about brutal honesty.
did you?
Said, brutal honesty is a great time saver.
It sure shit is. Tell you what, you can cut out a lot of bullshit. Just go straight in.
I was like, I love
but you got to
that.
prepare people for that, and there has to be an agreement that that's okay.
Yeah.
You can't just lay it on people. It's just a real shock to the
Or
system.
you can, and you just say,
Yeah, I
Just
strongest
expect some
survives.
consequences. That's all I'm saying.
I had a date
There's gonna be
last
some
week that-
attrition. There's gonna be some fall off, but
That's pretty hilarious.
well, let's start.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. Let's rewind for a second.
A good idea. I went
Because
way down that rabbit
you
hole.
went down the rabbit hole, which I want to talk more about. I just want to sort of understand the beginning of your life and where you started from.
I was born a small child at a very young age.
Where? Let's start with where.
Upstate New York, I'm from.
You're from New York?
Yeah, so I grew up in a large town named Barneville, New York. Maybe you've heard of it.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, population 375. Yeah.
Oh, now I got it.
Yeah, I got it. Right
now.
in the center of New York.
Yeah.
Really rocking place. We had a gas station, and they ran out of gas and shut down. And
Okay.
They never put the stoplight in, and the town is pretty much the same. So
And you spent your entire childhood there?
I spent my childhood there until I escaped college.
Wow.
Now, the saving grace for me, Scott, was we did have a summer home on Lake Placid in upstate New York. That is an incredible place, and it was a multi-generational thing. West shore of Lake Placid, no road access, just boat, and it was really a summer house because in the winter, snow would actually enter the house. So I spent a shit ton of time on the water, under the water, swimming, water skiing, boating, and then our backyard was a mountain range, and so I would be out hiking, and my hiking looked a lot like running through the woods and up the mountains.
Okay.
Kind of like the
Just
last
for fun?
Mohican, just for fun.
Just for fun. You loved running.
I just loved being out in the wilderness. I loved running. I loved, 20 some odd miles a day. And
This is what, you're 16 years old?
yeah.
Running 20 miles a day? Were you in
late
track?
Teens. No, it's just
You just liked running.
I just love that kind of out. And I'm not an endurance runner. Actually, I was an endurance swimmer. I was a competitive swimmer, but I loved being out in nature and just running. It was cool.
It's cool.
And it was very Zen-like, and it had a profound effect on me. It helped me appreciate the power of silence, which played a role later. So then I went off to college, and I swam crew, drank beer, chased girls, and did all that kind of stuff.
And you had no intention of going to the service.
None. I had my father was in the Army for just like 4 years, and it was basically you will join the Army or you're going to go to jail, because he had driven his car into the fraternity house at Union College. Right. So
Jeez.
That's the way they did it back then, which is a pretty cool idea. I wish they would bring that back. Go to war, go to jail.
Yeah.
Your choice, right?
Yeah.
So he joined the Army.
It definitely hardens people up a little bit.
It does, and he had fond memories of the Army, but we were definitely not a military family. I mean, the whole storyline for us was you go get some business experience from somebody else, go get an MBA if you want, or my parents didn't pay for it, but they paid for my sibling brothers, and then come back and help run the family business, which is over 1,000 years old. It was in Utica, New York, and they make machinery, for industry.
What kind of machine?
Well, like big industrial lathes and metal finishing machinery, and then there's a couple businesses. The other one called Munson makes these giant mixers, like bigger than this whole room, that will mix like chemicals and cereal components and just random stuff. You know what I mean? It's pretty interesting. Like that. Just like most businesses, it's had to really reinvent itself several times. In the earliest days, it was called Devine Brothers. They made these canvas cushion wheels for Henry Ford. So the very first wheels on the model, whatever it was, Model A, I think, were made out of canvas.
Really?
It's a pretty bumpy ride.
Yeah.
And so, of course, when DuPont came along and invented rubber, it almost put Devine out of business, and so they had to reinvent themselves. And then along comes World War II, and they got basically contracted to make helmets.
Oh.
Isn't that wild? Or World War One. No, I'm sorry, World War One.
One.
So now they're making, tin pot hats for the doughboys. And so that was what they did, and they had a government contract. And of course, after the war, that went away, and then they had to reinvent themselves. So
sure,
it's not uncommon, these days to have to reinvent yourself now a lot faster than in the past.
Well, the internet changes things really quickly.
Right. So that was that. I was being groomed to come back and be a family business guy. Colgate University, I was an econ major. That was that kind of fit. And then I got a job with Coopers and Lybrand, now PricewaterhouseCoopers, but it's it was a prestigious kind of job. And they brought me to New York City to become a CPA. I didn't have any accounting classes at Colgate, so I had to go to NYU to get a master's degree in accounting. I transferred it to get an MBA in finance because I thought that would be a little bit cooler. And so 4 years after graduating from college, I still wasn't a SEAL, but I was an MBA. I had my CPA. The coolest part was I had started this martial art, and I studied Zen now, and so I got my black belt. I got all that in October of 1989.
What martial art?
It's called Seido. It was a traditional karate. what was important about that was that with the Zen meditation. See, I started the martial art about 6 months after moving to Manhattan. So I trained it.
You needed meditation to live in Manhattan.
I really did. And it cracked me wide open, right? And so that was where it was on the meditation bench that I discovered that the story that I've been fed and that I was tracking with my family was not mine, right? It was a
You're like, this is not what I wanted.
It was not my story.
Sure.
I was living someone else's story. And what I was meant to do was to be a warrior, right? And to lead men in, wartime situations. Didn't discover on the meditation bench that I was meant to be a Navy SEAL. It was more this archetypal urge, this calling that I was able to tap into. And that's when I discovered the SEALs. Really, honestly, I didn't even consider it as an option until the meditation bench and my spirit told me, you need to be a warrior, and it has to be the most challenging, hard thing you could possibly do in the world. And that's going to bring out the best in you. And literally about a week after having that insight, I stumbled across the Navy SEAL recruiting office, and I saw the poster that didn't say anything about the SEALs, but they were very clearly guys doing SEAL shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Jumping out of airplanes, and there's a submarine with like a little mini submarine scooting away from it. There's like this little crop of trees, and if you look close enough, you can see the sniper, in there. But if
the poster got you.
Yeah, poster got me. And on the top of the poster it said, "Be someone special."
Oh.
That's it.
Yeah, it's good marketing.
Really good.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I want to be someone special. I mean, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Then what year was that?
That was 87.
Because that is a much different time for frogmen.
For sure.
Than it is now, right? I mean, now it's...
There were no TV shows.
Yeah.
Charlie Sheen hadn't done his thing. That was like in 90-something.
Uh-huh.
So I only had a few like old Vietnam era books, and Demo Dick Marcinko had written Red Cell, I think, or his first book. He was the founder of SEAL Team 6. I didn't have a whole lot to go on, but I just knew it, like in my heart, from the meditation, that was the path that I was meant to go down. And so back to that. So October of 89. So I trained basically I did a complete pivot in 87 when I had this epiphany. But I didn't quit my job. I committed then. I said, you know what? I have to prepare for this, right? I'm going down this way, and I can't just leap over. In fact, I didn't even get into the SEAL. It took me about a year to convince them to give me an opportunity through Officer Candidate School, because I was going to go in with a master's degree. And today, it's no big deal. Tons, like 60% of SEAL candidates are college or master's degree, and they go in as enlisted SEALs.
Wow.
Most of the officers come through the Naval Academy or Reserve Officer Training, but I was coming in as a civilian, and I needed to go through either Officer Candidate School or become an enlisted SEAL. And so I tried the OCS route first, and I ended up getting one of 2 slots that year that they offered to civilians. But it took a long time, right? It took me almost a year to do that. So I pivoted all my mental focus, all my training, my entire orientation about how I prepared myself. And I was using, back then, in 87, 88, and 89, I was using visualization, breath control. I was obviously doing very hardcore physical training, and I was meditating. And every day, without fail, rain or shine, I would spend about 2 to 3 hours in physical training and a minimum of 20 minutes to an hour in the mental training. And 9 months of this, once I pivoted, focusing on the SEAL, 9 months of that training, I had this another really cool experience, and that was like this overwhelming sense of certainty wash over me that I was definitely a SEAL. It just hadn't happened yet. Like I wasn't now wanting, hoping, desiring to be a Navy SEAL like most kids. I was going to be a SEAL. I just had to show up and do the work. And that was exactly what happened. So November in 1989, I was on a train after getting my black belt, my CPA, and my MBA all in October. Literally. It all just kind of came together. I got on a train, went to Newport, Rhode Island, Officer Candidate School. Then I went to BUD/S, Class 170, and graduated with my entire boat crew. Made it with me because I committed to them. We committed to each other. We're getting through this. And I was the honor man of my class, #1 graduate. 100%, Scott. It was because of the mental training, because the physical part was easy. I was almost pedestrian. Everyone else there was physically fit. Some of them were former combat, Marine Corps or Army, who did this crossover to the SEALs, and they quit. And every day I just showed up and just, focused only on the task at hand. And my mindset was, dude, I'm already a SEAL. So unless I die here, I'm going to be a SEAL. Right? Period.
I like that.
So I had a very strong
to
why.
win.
Yeah. There was failure was not an option.
Yeah.
So you're right. That principle for anybody listening is like critical for resiliency and mental toughness. And anything that you think is important is make the stakes really high for failure. Like you shouldn't be doing it unless you're willing to die doing it, right? Or damn close. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, really you're just marking time. We should choose things wisely and only go after the most, critical missions in life. Those that we're meant for and that have, the stakes are really high. So like anyone launching a business, like go big or don't do it. Now I'm not saying there might be some iteration, right, and some trial and error to get to the big, but don't do something unless you're willing to really commit everything to it.
Got it.
In my opinion.
No, I mean, you're not wrong.
No.
I mean, moderation's good too.
Except, everything's good in moderation. Everything good in moderation, including moderation. Is that the quote?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I would have to agree.
I'm talking about life mission. I'm not talking about like you go out to the bar, you go all the way.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I mean,
if you're going to do something in life, make sure, take the time to figure out what it is.
Yeah.
And then go. Like green light, go. Now you might have some false starts, but that's okay, right?
Yeah.
That's how you learn. Don't dip your toe in the water and hope to win big.
Yeah. No, people definitely underestimate what it takes to become something. Right. I mean, people talk about what they want, but the reality is people get what they want.
That's right.
For the most part, like if you really want something, you're going to get it because you're going to do what it takes to get it.
Anybody who's at the top of their game will tell you that it was back-breaking work to get there.
Yeah.
Right. And it's easy to think or to mistake that it was easy or it looks easy to everybody else.
Well, people like to chalk it up. It's easy to do that when they haven't really done the work and they want to complain or they want to, they want to bitch about something. They can chalk that up to, well, blah blah blah, or da da da. This, it's just like no, like those are excuses. You must not have really wanted it then.
Right.
Right. My mom used to always say that people get what they want.
It's true. It's because they're focusing on it, right? This is the magical way the brain works, right?
Yeah.
If you focus on something, even if it's disaster or, something really bad for you, a lot of people are just obsessed about that shit.
Oh, yeah.
And they get it.
Yeah.
Because that's where their mind's energy is. And the more energy you put into something, the more it's going to solidify and then materialize or manifest. I hate that term manifest, but bottom line is you create your own reality.
You do. I like that you were into yoga too before yoga has become so. I've been into yoga for like 15 years.
Yeah.
And I think it's the key to longevity.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
I love training. I love working out.
But the combination of the flexibility aspect and the breath and the mindfulness of yoga is powerful, and it provides it's like the yin to the yang of hardcore functional fitness, right?
Oh yeah.
You want both.
Yep.
Right. I know a lot of yogis. To be fair, the way yoga is taught a lot in the United States, most of it is basically group fitness.
Yeah.
Still a lot of benefits to the flexibility and the breath, and you find a good teacher and you're going to get a ton of benefits. But it's incomplete as a exercise system because it was never meant to be an exercise system for functionality and getting stuff done in the world. It was meant to be an exercise system to purify your body and to limber it up so you could sit in meditation. So anyone who's doing yoga for exercise, just beware that if you want to go out and play Navy SEAL, it's not going to be enough. Or if you want to go climb Kilimanjaro, then it's not going to be enough. If you want to go surfing, it's not going to be enough. But if you're a surfer, yoga will really help.
Yeah, it's supposed to complement.
It's a complement.
It's got to complement. Well, I would say it's bigger than complement because the fundamentals are so important.
Right. It fills in the gaps is a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Because with functional fitness, you don't really take time to bleed off the stress. You don't take time to do the durability and the core work and the recovery. You don't take time just laying down and doing nothing
and shutting off your mind.
Yeah, shutting off your mind. So yoga provides that.
I was at the gym after I went to yoga this morning, like 6 a.m. And then I I was at kind of like a group fitness class, but it was in off Sunset, and I was with a few of my buddies, and I was just laughing at them because, and I love them, but they can barely touch their toes. They're big guys, and I'm like, guys, you got it. Like, what is going on?
Right.
This is not sustainable.
Yeah, mobility is one of the most important aspects of longevity.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you can't touch your toes, if you can't do a deep squat, stand by, because eventually something might break.
Oh, yeah.
You're right. So, and everyone can get flexible, even, reformed weightlifters, or bodybuilders. It just takes time. You got to be really patient,
Mm-hmm.
My first yoga was Bikram's hot yoga. I did 30 days.
Of 90 minute?
Yeah,
90 minute, like
30 days straight, like one of their
right?
challenges.
Yeah.
Do 30 days nonstop. So I did that. I felt amazing, and I never stepped foot in another Bikram studio again in my life.
Yeah.
I literally wanted to shoot the instructors. The dialogue was grating on me. It was so hot. I was like, I don't ever want to do that again. But it got me started.
Sure.
And then I took Ashtanga yoga.
Yeah, it says you do,
hardcore.
what is it? Tim, what was it?
Kokoro.
I have some notes here somewhere. If I can read my own. What is
Kokoro?
Because I don't even know what Kokoro is.
Okay, Kokoro is a warrior term, a Buddha term from Japan, which means whole mind, or merging heart and mind into action.
Mm-hmm.
So we call our 50-hour training Kokoro camp, because instead of like Hell Week or something like that, we wanted to like give it its own character and its own brand. Is ultimately that's what happens in there when you connect at a deep level with another human being, is you're opening your heart, and then you're merging heart and brain mind into your actions. It's very different than just trying to muscle mind your way through things. And a lot of people mistake mental toughness for like just making your brain more efficient, or like your memory is better, or you're more discerning with your decision making. And those are all important skills, but they still fall short when you're exhausted, and when your emotions are running amok, and when you need a team to like resonate with you and to really trust you that you've got an answer, and you got their back, right? And so you really need to tap. Our concept of Unbeatable Mind is that your body is your mind, and so that includes the heart mind, the gut mind, plus also the peripheral nervous system. So we train whole mind, and that's what Kokoro means. Whole mind, merging heart and mind in action. They're kind of synonymous, but just different ways to look at it. At any rate, my experience with yoga was profound. So let me give you a quick story. So I trained, got started with Bikrams. Then I started training Ashtanga, which is like a hardcore, like almost a militant style of physical practice. Then I began to really understand the depth of yoga as the science of the mind and spiritual development. Autobiography of a Yogi, Paramahansa Yogananda, should be on everyone's reading list. It's a powerful book. Cracked my mind wide open about the potential of the human being and what yoga really was. And then I studied Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, and I've consumed everything I could get my hands on. The older the better. And I started to really understand the practice of yoga as the science of mental development, whole mind mental development. And so at any rate, that practice, understanding all that began to move me away from the structured programs like Ashtanga. Plus I got injured. Ashtanga is like, you're not meant to do the same thing every single day moving your body. The human being needs variety. And the Ashtanga practice was the same freaking flow every single time you hit it up. So I started to kind of like experiment training on my own. And because I was a lifetime martial artist, it was natural for me to like start to merge some of the things I'd learned through the martial arts with some of the poses that I knew from yoga. And I'd done 200 hours of teacher training in Ashtanga, and then later on I got 500 hours in something called Vini Yoga. Anyways, Scott, so where I'm going with this is 2004 comes along. I started training yoga in like 98, 99. 2004 comes along, and I get recalled to go to Iraq. So I'm still a Navy SEAL, but now I'm a Reserve SEAL, meaning I'm getting into business and I'm figuring things out, and I have time to actually practice yoga. When I was an active duty SEAL, I didn't have time to do anything like this, except for PT with my guys. So anyways, I get I'm on the plane to Baghdad, and I'm like scared, right? I mean, here's a Navy SEAL saying he's scared, but I was scared. And I think a lot of warriors experience fear. They're just able to control it and then direct their energy and to make that, turn that fear into kind of like, I wouldn't say aggression, but determination, right? So they're able to transmute their emotions and not let it overwhelm them, which is another real core principle of mental toughness and resiliency, is don't let the emotion overwhelm you. You want to channel that and focus that energy and use that energy for your objectives, right? And so there I am feeling like, okay, and the reason, let me characterize this, the reason I felt some fear is because I didn't have my team. I was now a reserve lieutenant commander. I'm flying over there alone to augment SEAL Team 1. I'm on the C-130. A week before, some Australian dude gets shot through the ass and dies while they're flying out of Baghdad. And now I'm flying in, and I'm like, wow, interesting. So I got up, and I'm flying into a combat zone on a C-130, and there I am in the back of the plane doing yoga. And there was a 3-star Marine general on the plane with his aide, and I'll be damned, they looked at me, and they thought it was the coolest thing ever. They just smiled and just went right back to work. They didn't say anything. And you would think, like, wow. But they understood, what I was doing. And I was just basically moving my body, moving the energy, breathing, and, preparing for what came next. When I got to Baghdad, all the SEALs and the special operators in this compound in Baghdad would try to PT every day. But, you can imagine the schedule is brutal, like nightly operations, guys kicking down doors. And so the SEALs at their compound had their little gritty little weight room, and they were doing CrossFit WODs and getting stuff done. And what I wanted to do is continue my integrated practice. So I found a little place near this lake, which was Saddam Hussein's kind of palace grounds. And this little cabin thing was all pockmarked, and the pool was empty, and it was shot up, but it was good enough for me. And so I set up shop there. Every day I'd wake up, get done with operations at like 3 a.m, sleep until 10. I'd wake up, and the first thing I do would go there, and I would train, and I did basically the predecessor to Kokoro yoga, which is our yoga. And we have an online, and I have another, that's my other book, Kokoro Yoga. It's about how to train yourself as a personal practice with yoga, where you don't need a studio anymore, because yoga is meant to be a personal practice. And I proved its efficacy in the combat zone. So every day, for the entire duration of me being there, when I could, there were only a few times I missed it, there I was doing asana, and then I was doing breath control work. I was, squeezing in about a 20-minute functional WOD, like burpees, squats, jumps and jumping jacks and push-ups, whatever. I changed it up every day. That kept me fit. Then I would do core development work, and then I would sit in meditation, and then I would visualize. And my visualization was something I now call future me, where I visualized myself back home with my family after leaving the combat zone. And I had this, growing sense that was the reality that I would face. And of course I did. And that whole experience was profound because, I remember flying into combat, like really stressed, orienting myself. And then I actually got stronger and more clear and less anxious every day that I was in the combat zone because of the yoga practice. And everybody else was just getting really burned out and, allowing the stress of combat to really overwhelm them, and then having to deal with post-traumatic stress afterward.
Yeah.
I'm preaching to the choir here, but, I'm telling you now, a lot of SEAL, I've been training yoga to SEAL candidates since 2007. A lot of the military and spec ops and first responders are finally really buying into it and starting to do it.
Yeah.
It's good to see.
Well, I would imagine too, I know nothing about being in combat, but I would imagine that when you're under that kind of stress, and if you're letting it affect you, like that's when like mistakes start happening.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like just like anything, when things are too much, like
your system gets overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And stress is cumulative. People don't realize that. They think, well, I'm stressed out now. Good. But if you don't do anything to bleed off that stress, then it stays in your body.
Yeah.
And then the next time you get stressed, it builds up. And that's why post-traumatic stress, it's healable. I'm convinced. I set up a foundation a couple of years ago called the Courage Foundation, and it was basically to bring this kind of integrated training to include the practices of Kokoro Yoga and Unbeatable Mind, which are fit together like a hand in a glove. Kokoro yoga is the routine, and Unbeatable Mind is the philosophy and the exercises to really change your mind and access your whole mind. And I want to bring these to vets who are suffering because it works both as preventative medicine, like it did for the SEAL candidates, as well as post-combat intervention for those who are really suffering. And 22 veterans a day are committing suicide, and it's for me that's untenable to sit back and not do something about it. So we're trying to be part of the solution by providing integrated training for free through the foundation to vets. We're actually looking for our first cohort to go through our training program. If anybody listening is a vet or knows a vet, then please contact us at info@sealfit.com, because we're looking for 10 to 15 to put through our 3-day or be a 4-day program, and followed by 18 months of coach support, and they won't pay a dime.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow. I mean, that's really great. Did you find that when you left combat that you were suffering at all from any PTSD?
Not a bit.
No?
No, I felt like $1 million. And again, I attribute it to the practices that I had in combat, daily breathing, breath control, first of all, Scott, is
huge.
And
you can regulate your anxiety and stress.
Absolutely. Bleed off stress, regulate your heart rate, regulate your hormonal balance. It basically that's the first step to regulate your homeostatic balance, and also to calm the mind and to begin to really eradicate the effects of negative dialogue, which is a big problem that, post-traumatic stress, they just can't get out of the fear loop.
That loop.
Yeah. And so with the breath control, you can begin to really interdict that. And it also doubles as a concentration practice, which then allows someone to really focus in on an issue or a problem, right? Otherwise, they're just too distracted and too, just say unable to really even just focus on what's the first thing I need to do to heal myself.
Yeah.
So a lot of these people, they're really hard to find because they're hunkering down, they're sitting around their underwear playing, whatever, some sort of first-person shooter, which is the last thing they need to be doing, and they're smoking and they're drinking and they're just crushing themselves until they have that, a trigger, which is basically the moment that they say, "This sucks. There's no meaning to my life," right?
Yeah.
And then they kill themselves, and so that's it. The intervention ultimately, it's almost like fail-safe. If you can just get these individuals into a room with peers, with some trusted, people who've been there and done that, who've healed themselves or understand the integrated, how to bring them back along this path, and you hold their hands so that anytime they fall down or there are moments of darkness, they've got someone there for them, then we can heal these people, but we don't know where they are. Even the VA doesn't know where they are. So it's really up to their friends and family to say, hey, here's something that you need to look at.
What do you find the distractions that you face are? Well, you find yourself...
That's good. To me, it's opportunity. It's unbelievable, the opportunity that we have in our world. And, largely, it's all over the place. You reach out your hand and there's an opportunity. Now, you could say, well, that's because you've created the opportunity. I have, but anybody can create this level of opportunity. Again, it all starts in the mind. Right? So if you begin to set the conditions of potential to basically, do whatever the hell you want, then your biggest challenge is going to be to say no to things. And so, to be honest with you, my biggest challenge is saying no. So I've, learned to basically lead with no. But it's taken me a few years. I really was codependent for a long time. I would say yes to everything, yes to every person as well. And man, that really distract me and sidetrack me with bullshit projects and people that I had no business being in business with or even hiring. I really attracted a lot of doozies, and because I just didn't know how to say no. So that's become my latest mental toughness skill is start with no or maybe I'll think about it.
Yeah.
And then really radically simplify and declutter your life so you can so you can just focus on the right things at the right time for the right reason. You can always answer the reasons. Why am I doing this? I know why I'm here sitting talking to you. It's very clear to me, right? This is definitely worth the 2-hour drive from San Diego to LA. But, I've said no to a lot of people over podcasts that, I had to drive to or, didn't really fit.
Well, no is a powerful one. Spreading yourself too thin it's like you said, man, just focusing in on what's important is, people don't want to let other people down, or people don't want to, or they don't want to, they think whatever, but you can't do everything.
Right.
And people want to do a lot.
They want to do a lot. And a lot of them a lot of that's because they're following what they see on social media. Everything looks easy on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Everything looks doable. And there's a sensation that if that person is doing it, I should be doing it.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't be, right? And that's what we talked about earlier. There's there's a narrow set of unique skill sets that each human being has. Like I went in the SEALs and I had to learn how to be relatively good at everything. But compared to some of my teammates, like I was a shitty shooter, even though I'm an expert marksman. And I've got 400 jumps, but the best, my teammates who are good jumpers have 4,000 or 10,000, like Andy Stump. Maybe he's got more. I don't know. It's a crazy number. And they are masters at that stuff. And I don't pretend to be a master at all those skills. What I was good at was developing leaders. And so I've narrowed my focus down to that, starting with SEALs and now with other people. I can't do everything, and there's a list of things that I would like to do. And every once in a while I'm looking at that and I'm asking myself, does that really still fit me? Because sometimes something that fits you at 20 doesn't quite fit you anymore at 50 or 55. I'm 55. What
does that list look like right now? What is that list of things you want to do or maybe aren't sure about doing or doesn't fit you anymore?
Well, I'll tell you one that I've always wanted to do. I want to go to space.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, I have a couple SEAL friends who are astronauts, Chris Cassidy, and then Bill Shepard was the first commander of the U.S. Space Station. I met Bill when I was a young lieutenant, and he really inspired me. And I actually looked into NASA and thought, well, if Bill can do it, then maybe I can do it. And Cassidy hadn't become an astronaut yet. But once I looked into it, I was like, oh, shit. It's back to what I was saying. It was just the wrong timing. I really needed to have that thought like 10 years earlier. Because all my education was off. I would literally had to go back to get a bachelor's in science and then a master's at minimum, but more likely a PhD to be a real serious candidate. And I didn't have, 10 years would have gone by and it just was not the right timing. However, a couple of weeks ago, I got contacted by SpaceX. Now they're about ready to send their first human being into space in May or June.
Wow.
Now, it's not going to be me.
Nah.
I wish it were.
Really? You would want to be the first in their organization?
My wife would probably freak me out. No, it's not realistic, right? Because the first people to go up are like really successful test astronauts, former NASA astronauts.
Yeah, well,
test pilots and astronauts.
But I mean, even if you were, say you were the best test pilot, you were the best test astronaut,
absolutely.
Would you want to be the first?
Absolutely.
I don't know if I'd want to be. I don't know if I want. I guess I made a whole life about it. But.
Yeah. I mean, these guys, we have the saying in the warrior traditions, one day, one lifetime, right? Every day could be your last.
Sure.
When you train for something that long, that hard, and you're riding the edge, any day could be your last. And what a glorious way to go. I mean, most of my warriors, like everyone laments all the warriors who have passed away, and it's tragic, right? To get killed in combat. But trust me, a true warrior, that's the way you want to go, right? You don't want to be, sitting in a wheelchair and having someone wipe your butt at 90 years old. It's much better, to be doing what you love to do.
I agree
and what
with
your
that.
calling is.
I 100% agree with that. I guess I just have a fundamental problem with going to space.
Yeah.
I think everything's trying to kill me up there.
It is. I know. It's exciting, isn't it?
I'm like, and I'm a pilot.
Are you?
I'm a pilot. I say
Right
that,
on.
and I'm like, I don't want to go to space.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn for like real space flight, and SpaceX is going to try to solve those problems. I'm not going up into space yet.
But they called you.
But it's been on my bucket list. So they called me basically to come and speak to the engineers around mental toughness.
Oh.
Because they're freaking out. It's the engineers.
They're about to go to space.
The astronaut.
The engineers
the
are freaking
two
out.
astronauts are fine. They're like, yeah, bring it on. This is nothing new. We got this.
Yeah.
But it's the engineers who are freaking out.
Because if they did something wrong, or they're
they
thinking
killed
all the
the
what
guys.
ifs.
Right.
Yeah. How they live with
mission
that.
failure is really not acceptable. It's one thing to shoot metal up into space. It's another thing to shoot a couple of your teammates.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have a fun talk about that. But, my secret wish is to convince them to bring me on as like their mental toughness coach, and then eventually to finagle a ride. Even
Just
if it's
sort of squirrel in there, huh?
Even if it's in the hold, you know what I mean?
They don't know
with
about
the
it.
vegetables, the dried nuts and vegetables.
Oh my, wow. That is not on my bucket list. Anything else?
I have a lot of things, like another one that really has starting to fall off because I realize it's just not going to happen. Was I wanted to climb the Seven Sisters.
Oh,
and cross Antarctica. Do all like the continents that most people don't go to.
Yep.
And I'm finally going to climb Mount Rainier this summer, which is like nothing compared to that, but I'm going to get a taste of it. I'll probably do a few of them, but I don't see myself doing all 7 at this stage of the game. Back to our discussion earlier, even though you have these really cool things you want to do, there is a point where you have to be like, yeah, does that make sense now? I'm 55. I'm physically strong. I for the next 20 years, I think physically I'll be able to do it. The question is, am I willing to take the risk now, given my mission and my family and whatnot?
But you're willing to go to space. The first guy to go to space.
I know it really doesn't make much sense, does it? I didn't say I made sense.
What inspires you?
I'm inspired by people who love to grow, right? Because so many people just are marking time and are, accepting the status quo, fixed mindset type of people. Things are the way they are, and that's fine. And so I have this belief that if you're not challenging yourself to grow, then essentially you're devolving.
Yeah. You're 100%.
Yeah. So I'm really fired up and I teach people how to grow. Like Unbeatable Mind is like a path. There are many paths for growth, and it's not right for everybody, but it's a path. It'll get people to the highest levels of their potential as a human being in this lifetime. And that inspires me, and I'm inspired by other people who have that same kind of passion, and I want to help them. In fact, that's my whole mission. My whole mission is to lead 100 million people to the Unbeatable Mind path of integration. Because ultimately, the destination, if there were one, there really isn't a destination with a path. It's the journey that is everything. It's a lifestyle and a journey. But the experience is integration, wholeness as a human being. Sounds a lot like yoga, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because yoga means union, yoking the mind to the spirit, essentially. That's the science of mental development. Unbeatable Mind is not yoga per se, but I'm offering an integrated training and development plan to make someone whole and in alignment with what they're meant to do in life. And the outcome of that is complete peace of mind and joy. It has nothing to do with money or building the biggest organization in the world or winning an Oscar even though those things are really good to have. Like those are just outcomes of you doing your work and doing it with heart. Right?
Yeah, definitely. What is a normal routine day look like for you?
So start with the things that I do. And I'm not, similar to you, I have to be very selective, right? So the things that I do that I love to do are to write, to produce some media that's going to deliver my training to a broader audience. So that could be like a podcast like we're doing. And I have my own podcast called Unbeatable Mind, videotaping and stuff like that. Training. It's a big one. Like I literally got back from Denver last night around midnight because I was out there training 8 people. Right. I usually try to train larger groups, but this is a bunch of really successful entrepreneurs, and they personally invited me out there to train them. So I flew all the way out there and spent 4 hours training them, and flew back. I love training people in this model, right? So that's what I do outwardly, right? The activity.
Mm-hmm.
But a good third of my day is spent training and developing myself. starting when I wake up at 5:30 to 6 in the morning. I don't use an alarm clock. I just basically naturally will wake up.
I do the same.
Yeah.
I found it's changed my life, actually.
Yeah, alarm clocks are really jarring and, kind of start your day off with a shock.
Yeah.
You don't need that.
And your circadian rhythm should wake you up. I mean, sometimes you have to get up earlier, like if you have a flight or you have a thing or, whatever. But
that's the outlier, right?
But I go to sleep. I try to go to sleep early, and I sleep with no blinds, and I wake up when the sun comes up.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And it's the best thing in the world.
Right. And that time, maybe you share this, but that time in the morning, the first 2 hours are...
Oh, that like 6 a.m., that 5.
That's the most precious time of the day. And that's what you gain when you go to bed early and, early to bed, early to rise.
Yep.
Makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise.
Yep.
It's so true because the first 2 hours a day is me time. And I call it my morning routine. And so I will do my breathing practice. I will do my movement practice. I will do my gratitude practice. I will do my ethos practice, which is basically aligning with my vision, mission, purpose, and what I'm meant to do. And I will do my front sight focus practice. And all these are principles that I talk about in the book, Unbeatable Mind, and my other book called The Way of the Seal to a different extent. And so I get all that work done. And this is not my workout, mind you. This is all basically working on refining my whole mind, right? Which includes the body. So there is movement. The breath and the movement is about aligning the spine and the energy centers and, really energizing the body and getting everything going and rehydrating and, getting physically ready for the day, right? Because that's the warrior's stance. And it gives me, I'm centered, grounded, and I'm able to stand my ground. And then I go into kind of the conceptual side of who am I, what am I meant for, and what am I going to do about it today? And that is about alignment. And so I go back and revisit my self-concept. And trust me, Scott, it's really fascinating. Like since I started this practice about 10 years ago, every few months, like I'm tweaking, I have it all written down. I'm tweaking a few words and, so my self-concept has changed and it's nudged my mission like in more and more the direction it is today, which is more on point. And so aligning with your purpose and passions in life is an iterative process. A lot of people, are vague about it or they don't even think about it. And so they just go out and, they allow the world to act on them and they just do because. They don't do because it's the right thing to do. So I take time in the morning. I call it winning in the mind before you step foot in the battlefield. And you set the conditions for the win, all in what I call your field of potential, which is basically your mind space. And you dirt dive the day, which is basically visualizing everything you're going to do. And then when you're done with that practice, then you go out and you kick ass and take names. And during the day, you always have these little resets where you come back in and check in and do little spot drills and maintain your presence and your composure and your mindset and all that kind of stuff. So I have those drills. But then I'm radically focused on what I need to do to move the dial toward fulfilling my mission during the day.
And you write all this down in the morning?
I have a journal. I have a journal, and most of it is reading and reflection and visualization, but I will write down insights and I'll write down things that...
What you're going to do?
Yeah.
You want to do?
Ideas, learnings or lessons, so what ends up being...
From the previous day or week, month, year?
Both, all the above, right? It's kind of timeless. So sometimes an insight finally occurs to you when, the pattern finally clicks in your mind. And then you're like, oh yeah, there's that pattern. And I didn't really recognize it to now. So that's something to notice and to write down. But like when I'm reading my ethos statements, I'm actually visualizing. So I'll read the statement like for example, my mission is very simple. To lead 100 million to the path of unbeatable mind, which is not just the book title, but it's the name of our program, by 2045. So it's a 25-year mission. It's a very simple statement, right? It has meaning to me because I know what an unbeatable mind means. Someone else reading that, they'd be like, well, I don't even know what that means. Every word in that statement has meaning to me, and I could probably even shorten it up. So when I'm reading that statement, now I'll breathe into it, I'll read it, I'll recite it back to myself, and then I'll visualize what that looks like to me. What does it look like in 2045 with me having fulfilled that mission? This is powerful practice. So I do that.
What does it look like?
Well, it looks like 100 million people on the path to Unbeatable Mind, trained not just by me, but by an army of certified coaches, because that's how we're going to scale this. And those people, those on the path to Unbeatable Mind, and you're going to resonate with this, are all, let me say it this way. I mentioned Unbeatable Mind is a practice of integration. It's accelerated vertical development or accelerated growth, because we work on integrated training, which leads to integration. So the integrated training means we're doing physical development, mental development, emotional development, intuitive development, and then the word Kokoro comes back in Kokoro, or whole mind development, and alignment around your purpose. So I have activities that we do every day, every week, every month, every quarter, every year to develop those 5 mountains or 5 attributes or 5 intelligences. As you develop those, you experience accelerating growth to higher stages of consciousness and awareness, where you have greater and greater perspective and greater capacity for care and concern, until ultimately you have great care and concern for the world and all sentient beings. And so we become world-centric warriors and leaders. So that's really, in that statement of mine, in that mission statement, what I'm saying is that I'm going to help train and lead 100 million and train 100 million, but it won't be me. I'll train the trainers, then who might even train the trainers. 100 million who are on the path of Unbeatable Mind to integration, who also are world-centric warriors and leaders. And that means they're out healing the environment, right? They're acting powerfully in service to humanity, and at a minimum, not doing any harm. And so they're starting to solve some of these, intractable problems that we've seen, where everybody's been self-serving over the past, or ethnocentric in terms of countries fighting each other.
But you have to be a little self-serving, right? I mean, even doing what you do and putting yourself first.
Sure. The self is subsumed in the world-centric, so they all exist. So when you're egocentric, you're only egocentric. You don't really care about anything else besides yourself. When you're ethnocentric, you care about your country, you care about your football team, you care about your company, or, Seals over Rangers, that kind of thing. That's ethnocentrism. And you care about yourself. So you've expanded your care of concern, which includes the self. So you're absolutely right. But when you're world-centric, you have great care and concern for the entire world, and you can take their perspectives, and you can respect their perspectives, even though if you disagree with it. And you have great care and concern for your country or your peeps, but you're not going to push them in a direction that's going to harm the global commons, let's just say. You're going to make decisions that are different. And you have great care and concern for yourself, but a world-centric care and concern for the individual self doesn't show up as a victim or doesn't show up as a thug. It shows up as someone who's going to basically spend 2 hours every morning mastering themselves. And other people could look at that and say, that's so self-centered that you're spending 2 hours in your own training. Why aren't you out, standing in a soup kitchen line serving soup? And I said, well, I'll do that after I master myself, because if I'm not fit and clear and strong, then I'm not going to have the energy or the time to do that. And probably because I've said yes to too many darn things, and I don't do that.
Yeah.
And so self-mastery always precedes service, in my view. They'll have people flip that, and they go out and try to serve, but they serve with, bad emotional control, right? They serve with wrong intention. You see this all throughout our philanthropy in America. Corporate philanthropy basically is marketing. And I'm not saying, I'm painting a broad brush, so if someone's listening to this saying that's not why I do it, okay, fine. But generally speaking, in the industrial age, corporate philanthropy was about taxes and about marketing. And that's okay, but it's one-dimensional, and it's somewhat, ethnocentric. It's not world-centric. It's not really trying to save the world. But like someone like, Jeff Bezos, who says, I'm not going to give my money to a charity that's may waste it. I'm going to find direct actionable things that I can do with my money, and I'm going to basically solve problems with it. That's really cool, right? Because that's a world-centric kind of mindset that says, I'm going to go help solve some of the worlds with my $100 billion or whatever it's going to be. as opposed to just pledge it to the Gates Foundation or to some, something that may or may not do any good. And I'm not saying Gates doesn't do good. He does. At any rate, I got off in a little tangent there.
It's okay.
But you're right. It was all based on your comment.
It sounds like you answered my next question was what's important to you. And that was
There's a few, if I were to walk down my list of stands, which is not things that I really stand for and willing to fight for. One is, I just said it earlier, I can't fight for anything unless I take care of myself. So frankly, the most important person in anyone's world is themselves. The only caveat to that is if you're a mother with a child or you're the primary caregiver for a child who can't take care of himself or an adult who can't take care of himself, then you necessarily have to subjugate a lot of your own attention and self-care. But even that is a problem, right? So it's really important for those people to find some balance so they can do the self-care, right? So that they can care for others more effectively. So my first stand is master myself every day. And my second stand is so that I can serve powerfully in my unique way, right? Of training and integrating world-centric warriors and leaders. My next stand is to help reduce suffering in the world. And so I'm fulfilling that stand through the Courage Foundation in a way that is uniquely oriented with my life, because I'm a warrior and a combat vet. I'm not trying to serve homeless or, those are things that other people who are connected to those causes will jump on, but I can do something about this. And so that's part of my stand. Another one of my stands is to help heal the environment, right? So I think the environment's really, kind of gotten screwed over by just a narrow-minded, egocentric corporate greed, corporate statism, and everyone acting independently to, just basically rape.
Become rich.
Yeah, get rich and rape the environment. So there's a lot that can be done. There's a lot of research. We know what to do. It's just having the resolve to do it. So I don't really have an answer. I know a lot of entrepreneurs and, people like in your field are really working hard to educate people and to do something about that. And it's not going to be handled by the government, right? So all this stuff about, whether Trump or, or government believes in it or not, it's irrelevant because it's not going to be solved by government, right? These problems are going to be solved by the people in the future. And that's a mindset that everyone has to start to align with, because if everybody took action on this planet, it would be solved immediately, right? But everyone's waiting for some magical person behind them, like the Wizard of Oz, to pull the lever. And that's never going to happen. Those days are gone. So I stand for healing the environment and protecting Mother Earth and our home, and hopefully we've got time for that. And the last one, which I really wish I could do something, but I'm going to have to wait on this one, is to reduce or eliminate man-made existential threats. Right? Think just how insane it is that we have nuclear weapons that will destroy humanity. I mean, not even give us a chance to survive if they're let loose. What kind of race of beings would allow that to happen?
Do you think you have a different perspective from your 25-year-old self?
For sure.
SEAL, operating, being in the military, to how you feel about war now?
Definitely. I mean, if you're growing, then your perspective changing, your concept of self is changing. If I hadn't been growing, then I certainly wouldn't be sitting here talking to you.
Yeah.
My 25-year-old self wasn't worthy of sitting here and talking to you. I was a war fighter. I was a great guy, MBA, CPA, super smart, but my concept of the world was still pretty narrow. Yeah, but at the same time, I did have an open heart from my meditation practice, and so I was starting to really grow into this concept of there's a different way to go about warfare. And I'm not a pacifist, mind you. I believe that we have to have a strong military. The SEALs are just an amazing fighting force. We basically, we're necessary to be out there because there is evil in the world, right? And so we got to fight against evil. I'm just suggesting that even warriors and special operators, you can either have someone who is a thug who wants to go play whack-a-mole, who's got the skills to get through SEAL training, or you can essentially have someone who's a world-centric warrior who's going to be in a war-torn place like Syria or Iraq or Afghanistan or Sudan, and they're going to think very differently than this guy over here who's their teammate, who's over there to play whack-a-mole and just, rack up KIAs. I want to train those world-centric, and when I was in the SEALs, I was either there or certainly like really, really close, because I didn't have this need to kill another human being. It was my duty if called upon to do so, and I'm fortunate I didn't have to. Right, in combat, I was relieved of that duty. So, and then combat does change a lot of warriors. Some of them get really broken, and then they have to deal with the post-traumatic stress. Some die, some come back without limbs, and others come back basically understanding just how horrific war is, and that it's not a solution for 90% of what we use it for. Right. It truly is the last resort, and truly should be used only in the case of evil. Like I 100% think World War II was necessary to take out, the Nazi threat and Hitler, right? Because he was just an evil incarnate, right? In his notions of, right, his vision for the world and, extermination of a whole, population. So that was necessary. But, a lot of the wars that have been waged in the last 30 years have really been kind of driven by corporate greed, and that's what Eisenhower was warning against, the military-industrial complex. And now it's so entrenched that it's, we do these things and we don't even really understand why they're happening. And a lot of it's because of the, the corporate greed and the, the interests.
It's a big machine.
Of the machine, yeah. So at any rate,
It's okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to have all the words.
We
don't need all the words. We don't have all the words all the time, man.
Yeah, I don't want people to think I'm a pacifist at this, because we're talking about eradicating nuclear weapons and whatnot.
But war for a pipeline is a different thing altogether.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, cool. It sounds like what you're doing is awesome, and I love that you're doing something positive, and you're putting out a product that helps people. I'm all about that. I'm all about people who contribute to society. You can just go through life and do something that doesn't mean anything, or just take. Right. But that's never, like, no matter how rich you get, you will not feel good about what you do. Right. And it's clear that you sitting here, you feel good about what you do, and you feel proud of it, and you want to help people. So it's awesome, and I can't wait to check out the book. I'm going to read this one first.
Go for it. That is the right place to start.
This is the right place to start. Yeah. I'm really interested in some of the routines and the mindset stuff in the morning, because I'm always looking to.
Do you have a meditation practice right now? Or?
Yeah, I do. I do some TM, and I don't do enough. Mm-hmm. I probably fall short there, because I figure that I'm sort of killing that stone or killing that bird with yoga. Right. So I'll kind of, but then I need to sit and quiet, and I do. But I have a good morning ritual. Good. But I always want to get better and evolve, and that's what I'm all about. So
one of the practices I introduce in Unbeatable Mind is called box breathing. And this can be done like first thing when you wake up in the morning, and you just kind of like re-entering. Then we train ourselves to begin this box breathing practice, and it really is profound. And what it does is it stabilizes the mind and leads us into meditation. Mm-hmm. So it can be a real complement to someone else's. Like TM is a mantra practice, which is a concentration training. And so box breathing can be combined with TM. So while you're doing TM, you're doing box breathing, and now you're getting a double whammy. It's basically a layered practice. And then you can also combine your visualization to it. And so this is what I teach, and I've been teaching to the SEAL candidates for a long time. Box breathing is a start, and that's like the physical that has the effect on the mental. And it's just essentially breathing in a box pattern. So, 4 or 5 count would be ideal. So you're going to exhale, and all the breath is through the nostrils. That's very important. We're supposed to breathe through our nose, not our mouth. And so we'll inhale to a 5 count, hold your breath to a 5 count, exhale to a 5 count, and hold your breath on the exhale to a 5 count. This practice, it's a 20-second basically practice for each round. And so, every minute you're going to be only doing 3 breaths. So you're basically training your body-mind system to radically slow down the pace of your breathing, and to get in more oxygen with each breath, full lung capacity, and you're triggering your parasympathetic nervous system with every breath because you're breathing through the nostrils and you're accessing your diaphragm, which is massaging and stimulating the vagus nerve and stimulating parasympathesis. So the box breathing practice is going to bleed off stress and bring you back into balance. The brain, and remember the idea about whole mind, the brain, the heart, and the gut are all part of your body. So the experience of your mind is a calming effect.
Yeah.
And so then that leads to, because the box pattern is a pattern, you can follow it with your mind, right? And visualize it. And so that becomes a concentration practice. So now we got the breath work, which is a physiological effect of calming and, controlling the arousal response. The SEALs call it arousal control. And then you have the clarifying effect on the brain, which allows us to define where we're going to put our attention and to take control of the quality and the quantity of our active thoughts, because we're now learning how to concentrate on a narrower range of things, in this case, just the box. And so then it has the same effect as mindfulness practice, because every time you deviate from the box pattern, you're going to be noticing it eventually. And then we create what we call the simultaneous mind, which is the watcher and the thinker, or the witness and the thinker. And then once you establish yourself from the perspective of the witness, now we're starting to access whole mind. I explain all this in the book, Unbeatable Mind. It's a ridiculously powerful practice, and will have a demonstrably different effect than your yoga practice. And it's meant to be done every day for a minimum of 5 minutes up to 20 minutes, first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
Right. So
I get up and I write first thing in the morning. I write in my journal.
Writing is a good thing to do, but you can box breathe and then lead into your writing and see what happens. Quality of your writing will change. Just saying.
No, I'm going to check it out.
Give it a try.
I would definitely give it a try. I'm excited to check it out. Cool. Well, I think I covered pretty much what I wanted to cover. Thanks for coming in, man. It was awesome. I'm excited to check the book, and awesome, I'm excited for anyone who wants to, check it out to figure out who you are and kind of go down your path.
Yeah. So if anyone's interested in getting their ass kicked, then SEAL Fit is the place to learn more on that.
Yeah,
SEAL Fit, but and it's more than just Navy SEAL training, because our coaches are world class. A lot of them are SEAL instructors right now. And they teach, resiliency and mental toughness. We have these big 4 skills we drill relentlessly. And they're breath control, which we just talked about, positivity, which is feeding the courage wolf, visualization, and then micro goals, task orientation. These things sound simple, but when they're trained together, they become like a flow activator and a really powerful mental focusing and mental toughness kind of suite of tools. And then Unbeatable Mind is our holistic, integrated training, which is really geared toward entrepreneurs, professionals, any individual who's really wanting to tap their fullest potential. You're capable of 20 times more, but you got to find it within.
I like it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me up here, Scott. It's been awesome.
Hey, man. Good talking to you.
Yeah, hoo-yah.